After 12 years on Oklahoma's death row, Marilyn Kay Plantz was executed by lethal injection. But to understand how a church-going mother ended up on death row, we have to go back to a summer morning in 1988 when a burned-out pickup truck was found in a remote area in northeast Oklahoma City. On the evening of August 25, 1988, James Earl Plantz left for his overnight shift at the Daily Oklahoman. He was 33 years old, a working husband doing his best to support his wife and kids. At home, Marilyn Plantz tucked their two children, 9-year-old Trina and 7-year-old Christopher, into bed. The house was quiet, normal. But Marilyn already had a plan in motion. She wasn't alone that night. Hours earlier, she had picked up 17-year-old William Clifford Bryson and his friend Clinton McKimble. The three of them drove around for hours. Marilyn pulled money from her bank account, bought crack cocaine and beer, and waited for Jim to leave home for his night shift. And once he was gone, they returned to the house. The two men drank and smoked in the front room of the house while Marilyn took care of the children and went to bed around 10:30 p.m. But this wasn't the first time she had welcomed Clifford into her home. They had met sometime in late 1987 or early 1988. Marilyn was nearly twice his age, a married mother of two. Clifford was a teenager, just 17, with little direction. But by spring, their relationship had turned sexual. While her husband worked late nights trying to provide for his family, Marilyn played hostess. She let Clifford drive her car, gave him money for booze or crack, and made space for him and his teenage friends like they owned the place. Their affair wasn't just reckless, it was dangerous. And it quickly spiraled into something darker. Marilyn wanted her husband dead, and Clifford was willing to help. Marilyn had told Clifford that Jim was abusive, that she was done, that she needed a way out, and that she was willing to kill for it. A divorce wouldn't give her what she wanted, because what she wanted was the $300,000 payout from Jim's life insurance policy. And to get that, he had to die. The plans came and went. First, Marilyn handed Clifford a gun and told him to use it, but instead of pulling the trigger, he pawned the weapon for cash. Then she came up with the idea of an ambush at the house, luring James home early while the boys waited inside. But that plan didn't work out either. Later, she suggested the idea of a fishing trip where the two men could shove Jim off the side of a boat and let the water do the rest. But that too never happened. Still, Marilyn kept pushing. And now another plan was underway. Just after 4 a.m., Jim returned home, groceries in hand, and whistling like it was just another morning, not knowing what was waiting for him in the kitchen. Clifford struck first, blindsiding him with a bat to the back of the head. James staggered and called out for Marilyn, but she never came. She stayed in the bedroom, waiting. Then Clinton joined in, and together they kept swinging until James collapsed on the floor. But he wasn't dead yet. He was still alive when they dragged his body outside and shoved him into the bed of his own pickup truck. That's when Marilyn finally stepped out. She looked at the battered man she had once married and said it was too messy. His head's busted open. It's not going to look like an accident, she told them. Burn him. And that's exactly what they did. Clifford and Clinton drove the pickup out to a deserted stretch of road. They pulled Jim's limp body into the cab, slumped behind the steering wheel, and tried to set the truck ablaze. Clinton lit a rag in the gas tank, but it didn't catch. So Clifford poured gasoline inside and around the vehicle and struck a match. The fire roared to life, and as they drove away, they looked back and saw something no one forgets. Jim was trying to sit up. He was still alive when the flames took him. Back at the house, Marilyn was already scrubbing the blood from the floor. She then told the men to strip out of their bloody clothes and change into her husband's, while she bagged the stained clothing in a sack. She told them to dump this bag far away from her house. She wanted no traces and no mistakes. But their night wasn't over. Still high and wired from the adrenaline, Clifford and Clinton stopped at a convenience store where they used the dead man's cash to buy sandwiches and drinks like it was any other night. Then they headed to a friend's house, Michael Kendrick's place. There, in a haze of casual bravado, they told Michael what they had done, laid it all out like it was no big deal. And when Michael asked about Marilyn's kids, Clifford said they were asleep just a few feet from where their father was beaten to death. Then Clifford picked up the phone and called Marilyn. She was fine, she said. She had already bought a new rug to hide the bloodstains. And before hanging up, Clifford told her what they both already knew. They had to stay close now. What began as a quiet morning ended with a burned body in a smoldering truck and a mother of two standing over a blood-stained floor, wiping away the evidence of a man she had once promised to love. This wasn't just murder. It was coordinated, planned, and brutally carried out by the person Jim trusted most. Hours later, at 5:15 a.m., firefighters found the burned-out pickup in a remote area in northeast Oklahoma City. The driver's door was wide open, and slumped behind the wheel was a man's body. His left foot lay flat against the pavement, stretched like he had tried to crawl out, but he didn't make it. The fire had nearly wiped away any trace of who he was, but dental records later confirmed the truth. It was James Earl Plantz. The investigation moved quickly, and Marilyn's affair with a 17-year-old didn't stay hidden for long. The story unraveled fast, and when questioned, Clifford was the first to break. He told police he had gone along with it because of the bruises. He had seen Marilyn with black eyes, and this made him angry. He also said he loved her. Maybe that was true, or maybe it was just easier than admitting he helped kill a man for cash. Marilyn had told a lot of people that Jim had threatened her life, that he said if she ever left, he would kill her and then himself. And at first, that story stuck. Even members of Jim's own family believed it. She painted herself as a woman living in fear, trapped in a marriage she couldn't escape. She said she had told Jim she wanted a divorce, but that he had responded with threats. That kind of talk left an impression on others, and for a while, it worked. Jim's family didn't want to think Marilyn had anything to do with it. She had always seemed so put together, so quiet. The kind of woman who sat in the same church pew every Sunday, Bible in hand, and a soft smile on her face. Jim's sister even tried to hire a lawyer for her. They thought maybe Marilyn had been manipulated, or maybe she hadn't known the plan until it was too late. But that hope shattered when detectives revealed what they had found. Marilyn hadn't just been aware of the plan, she had been the one pulling the strings. She promised Clifford that as soon as Jim was out of the picture, they would cash in on his life insurance, leave Oklahoma, and start a new life together. She talked about marriage, even named the places they would go. It was all mapped out, cold and calculated. And that's when reality set in with Jim's family. Their loved one hadn't died in some tragic accident. He had been murdered, and the person behind it was his own wife. After the arrests, Clinton took a plea deal. He pleaded guilty and took a life sentence in exchange for testifying against Marilyn and Clifford, and he didn't hold anything back. On the stand, he gave the jury every ugly detail, the plans, the beatings, the fire, and Marilyn's role in it all. She hadn't just watched. She pushed it along, lit the match, and fueled the fire in every way but literal. When it came time to face trial, Marilyn and Clifford sat side by side, but when it came time to speak, they both stayed silent. No explanations, no apologies, nothing. But the jury saw right through them. They were both convicted. And in March 1989, Marilyn, once a Sunday school teacher, a wife, and a mother, was sentenced to death for planning the murder of her husband. Clifford, who turned 18 just 6 weeks before the murder, was sentenced to death too. He spent the next 11 years on death row. On June 15, 2000, Oklahoma carried out his execution. Clifford was 29. In his final statement, he looked toward the victim's family and said he was sorry. He told them he hoped they could find peace and move on with their lives. For his last meal, Clifford requested 10 fried shrimp, a salad, a strawberry drink, a slice of German chocolate cake, a pint of ice cream, and a hot apple fritter. For the same 12 years, Marilyn stayed in her cell and kept fighting, trying to shift the focus to the life that came before the crime. She blamed her childhood for what she had done, and eventually her family backed her up. During one of the trials, 3 of her sisters came forward, and each gave sworn statements that painted a bleak picture of their childhood. The 6 of them had grown up in a home marked by poverty and control, where their father ruled with a heavy hand. He was strict, angry, and quick to punish. They said the bruises weren't always visible, but the fear stuck around. And they didn't stop there. They talked about Jim, too, how Marilyn had gone from one controlling home to another. They described him as jealous, harsh, and increasingly violent. To them, Marilyn never escaped the cycle and traded her father's shadow for her husband's. But no matter how many stories were told or how many wounds were reopened, it didn't change the outcome. At the clemency hearing, Marilyn asked for her death sentence to be commuted to a life sentence. She said she was deeply sorry for everything she had done. Her voice cracked as she spoke about the one thing that still gave her hope, her daughter Trina, who had only been 9 years old at the time of the crime. After years of silence, the two had finally reconnected. "It's hard for me to think about living the rest of my life in prison," Marilyn admitted. "But now I have a real reason to live." Trina sat just a few feet away, silently weeping, a tissue pressed tightly against her face. She didn't speak during the hearing, but a pre-recorded video played in her place. In it, her voice trembled. "I want the chance to forgive her," she said, "but I can't bear the thought of finally having a relationship with a mother I haven't seen in 13 years, only to watch her die in 3 weeks. That makes me cringe." But the decision stood, and the board's 4-0 vote moved her closer to becoming the second woman executed in Oklahoma. She had her last meal on Monday, April 29th, 2 days before the execution. She requested a chicken taco salad, a Mexican pizza, 2 enchiritos, 2 chicken soft tacos, cinnamon twists, a slice of pecan pie, and 2 cans of Coca-Cola, her last comfort before the needle. On May 1st, 2002, she was strapped to the gurney. She didn't cry, didn't beg. Instead, she leaned into the faith she had clung to in her final years. Her voice was steady, almost calm, when she said, "I want to tell all of my family that I love them very much, especially Trina and Chris," she said. "What God has given me is love, and I have overcome the world. And I just want y'all to know that nothing, absolutely nothing, can separate us from the love of God." Then she looked toward her family and added one final message: "If you all want to see me again, you must be born again." She didn't apologize for what she had done to her husband, and she never expressed any regret, not for the murder and not for the plan she helped set in motion. After the execution began, her chest moved slightly, and she made a few short snorting sounds, but then went still. 3 minutes after her final words, at 9:11 p.m., she was pronounced dead. Marilyn Kay Plantz was 40 years old. What do you think? Has justice been served? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.